Keeping up with the tech world is a full-time job, right? Well, imagine being one of the companies actually leading the charge in stuff like AI and automation.
That's exactly where All E Technologies Ltd is at right now.
And their latest earnings call, oh, it's a treasure trove of insights, let me tell you.
Definitely a deep dive worthy company.
Big time.
Mhm.
So today, we're going to get into All E Technologies Ltd's Q2 and H1 FY25 results.
Looking at all the good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the conference call transcript, investor presentation, company profile, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And whether you're, an investor or just someone who's fascinated by like where business is going, this is going to be a good one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, what really sticks out about All E Technologies is how they've managed to, take their deep knowledge of enterprise applications and combine it with this like forward-thinking push into AI and automation.
Yeah.
It's not just about the buzzwords,
Right.
They're really being smart about capturing more of their clients' tech spending as those needs change.
It's like they're saying, hey, we'll build your digital foundation, but we'll also make sure it's like future-proof.
Exactly.
And speaking of future-proofing, can we talk about their financials for a second?
Oh, yeah. Let's dig in.
Because 8.4% quarter-on-quarter revenue growth, a 24.5% jump year-on-year for Q2. That's the kind of stuff that investors dream of.
Yeah, and it's not just empty growth, just for the sake of it. Their net profit margin is really healthy, 17.6%.
Mhm.
And their H1 performance,
Mhm.
really strong across the board. But there's one number that really jumps out to me.
Oh, tell me.
93.6% of their Q2 revenue was repeat and recurring.
Whoa.
In an industry, infamous for churn, that is a testament to how good their solutions are and the relationships they build with their clients.
That's loyalty right there.
Absolutely.
It almost makes you wonder, what's the secret? Are they just that good, or is there something, more to it?
Well, I gotta think those deep ties they have with Microsoft, they gotta play a role.
Oh, for sure.
Remember, a huge chunk of their revenue is tied to putting into place and then managing Microsoft solutions, which are, just booming globally. But it goes deeper than just, riding Microsoft's wave.
I think you're right, because in their investor presentation, they specifically call out their focus on the Microsoft stack as like a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just out of, convenience, it's strategic.
Exactly. They genuinely believe that, for most of their clients, Microsoft just offers the best solutions, period. So instead of trying to be, a jack of all trades with all these different platforms, they've become masters of one.
Smart.
And that lets them have this expertise that's hard to beat.
So they're all in on Microsoft, and it's working. But, the tech world never stands still.
Oh, tell me about it.
We talked about AI and automation, and the management team definitely highlighted this shift towards those areas in the earnings call. So how's All E Technologies keeping up with this demand for these like really cutting-edge solutions?
They're not just keeping up, they're out in front. Their R&D, their investments are super focused on AI and automation, and they're coming up with some really cool stuff. You remember Smart Genie, their virtual assistant?
Oh yeah, Smart GD for HR tasks. Yeah.
It's like straight out of sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
Imagine this, you're an employee and you need to know something about your vacation time, your benefits, whatever. Instead of, digging through those long company policies or waiting on hold forever with HR, you just chat with Smart Genie.
Okay, I like this already.
It gets what you're asking, finds the information you need, and gives you a personalized answer. Like that. Boom.
I mean, that would be amazing. No more frustration, no more wasted time.
Exactly.
But technically speaking, what's the AI behind Smart Genie? What's making it tick?
It's a combo of natural language processing, or NLP, and machine learning, ML. Basically, it's learned from a massive amount of HR questions and answers, so it understands how we talk and can give you an answer that actually makes sense in context. And here's the cool part, the more people use it, the smarter it gets. It's constantly refining its knowledge. So it's not replacing humans, it's making them better.
It's like giving HR superpowers.
Kind of. And that frees them up to focus on the bigger picture stuff.
It's a perfect example of AI working with us, not against us,
Exactly. Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. But something like Smart Genie, it takes serious brains to develop that.
Oh, yeah, major brain power. And this is where that focus on Microsoft, their stack, really comes into play. They're using the power of Microsoft Azure, the cloud, and the AI capabilities to build and run these solutions.
Makes sense.
Gives them a huge advantage when it comes to scale and reliability.
It's like they have this world-class tech infrastructure without having to build it from scratch.
Exactly.
So they're financially solid, they're leading the way in new tech, they know Microsoft inside and out.
Yeah.
But what about their global reach? Are they just a domestic player, or are they thinking bigger?
They're definitely growth focused. A big part of that is expanding in the US. It's already 65% of their services revenue. But they haven't forgotten where they came from. They're also exploring Africa, which has massive potential for digital transformation.
It's finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Deepening their presence in a key market like the US, but also exploring new frontiers.
Exactly. And it's not just about, sticking pins on a map.
Right.
They're being really careful about how they get new customers because the game has changed. Cold calling is out. It's about thought leadership and being present online.
So they're playing by the new rules.
They're building their brand, positioning themselves as the experts. And it's not just selling. It's about educating and empowering potential clients.
Okay, so growth is key. But what about acquisitions? Are they looking at growing that way too?
They are, but they're not just buying any company that comes along.
Right.
They're strategic about it, looking for companies that fit their core strengths and make their offerings even better. Actually, they recently hit pause on a due diligence process with a U.S. company because of some internal shifts over there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they're being cautious.
It shows they're not just chasing deals. They're doing their homework, making sure it's a good fit.
But they didn't completely shut the door on that deal.
Not at all. They said they might pick up the conversation again in 6 months or so. But in the meantime, they're already talking to another potential acquisition, also in the U.S.
So they're definitely in growth mode, but they're not letting that rush compromise their strategy.
Right.
They're taking their time doing their research, making sure every move fits into their long-term vision.
And that long-term vision, it's impressive. They're aiming for 1,000 crores in revenue within the next 8 years.
Whoa, that's a big goal.
It is.
But given their track record and how strategic they are, it's not out of reach.
I'd say they're a company to watch, not just for the financials, but for how they approach business as a whole.
Yeah. They're proving you can be successful and still stick to your values
Exactly.
and build a company that people actually want to be a part of.
Yeah, speaking of values, their company culture seems to be a big part of their success.
Huh?
The leadership team is incredibly stable.
Really?
They've been working together for over 2 decades.
That's amazing. Especially in the tech world where things move so fast. What's their secret? How do they stay so cohesive for so long?
Well, they really emphasize their commitment to ethical business, doing things the right way. In the call, they specifically said they don't do bribes or play favorites to win deals. They're willing to walk away if it means compromising their integrity.
That's impressive. For them, integrity is not just a word.
Oh, no. It's at the core of who they are.
Yeah. It's about more than just avoiding bad behavior. It's about creating a positive and supportive environment.
Exactly. And a big part of that is their employee ownership program, the ESOP. Every employee has a stake in the company's success.
It's like they're saying, we're all in this together. When we succeed, everyone succeeds.
It's a real sense of ownership, of responsibility.
No wonder they have such happy employees.
Oh, yeah, and low turnover. But how does this focus on ethics and well-being translate into everyday work? How do they make sure these values are actually lived, not just talked about?
That's a really good question. And one we'll definitely explore as we go deeper. They've given us a peek into their financials, their approach to technology, their culture. But there's so much more to discover.
I can't wait. Buckle up, listeners. This deep dive is just getting started.
You know, it's easy to talk about ethical business, but actually seeing it in action, that's something else. All e-technologies, they walk the walk. They shared a story in the earnings call that really shows this.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What happened?
So they were in the running for this big government contract, like a game-changer kind of deal.
Huge.
But as they were going through the bidding process, they were asked to do something that just didn't sit right with them ethically.
Oh, wow. So they had a choice. Compromise their values for this potentially massive contract or walk away. Exactly. And guess what they did? They walked away. They chose integrity over profit, even though it could have cost them, a huge opportunity.
That's a powerful statement.
Uh-huh.
It shows that their commitment to ethics isn't just talk, it's how they make decisions.
And it sends a message to their employees, their clients, their competitors, that they don't cut corners, they don't compromise their values.
They're in it for the long haul.
Exactly. Building trust, building a sustainable business.
That kind of integrity is rare, especially these days. But It's clearly a key ingredient in their success.
Absolutely. But let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about their long-term vision. They've set this ambitious goal of hitting 1,000 crores in revenue in the next 8 years.
Bold.
Right. One shareholder in the call was curious about how they plan to pull that off, especially with how quickly the tech world
Yeah,
changes.
it's a valid question. What's hot today could be old news tomorrow. How do they plan to stay ahead of the game and keep growing?
Well, their answer was interesting. They basically said, we're taking all the necessary steps without being reckless.
Hmm, that's kind of cryptic.
It is, but it reveals a lot about their approach.
Okay, unpack that for me. What does it say about their strategy?
To me, it means they're confident in their ability to hit that target, but they're not going to sacrifice their long-term stability for some quick wins.
Sustainable growth, not just chasing numbers.
Exactly. And they're thinking about the next 8 years, not just the next quarter. And a big part of that long-term vision is investing in their own intellectual property, their IP.
Right, creating their own solutions.
Exactly. Like they're building this education technology platform, and they think it has the potential to really shake things up in that industry.
So they're not content with just implementing other companies' tech. They're creating their own.
Exactly. And they're smart about it, using their deep knowledge of the Microsoft stack to do it. They're building on that foundation, but also pushing the boundaries.
It's like a mix of proven expertise and like cutting-edge innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think about something we talked about earlier, attracting and keeping top talent. With the cost of tech professionals going up, how are they handling that?
I mean, their company culture is a huge asset.
Right.
People want to work for companies that share their values and, offer opportunities to grow. And all e-technologies is doing both.
Yeah, their ethical stance, the ESOP, that positive work environment, those are all big draws.
Oh, absolutely. But they're also addressing the money side of things. Remember that analyst who asked about their billing rates?
Yeah, he was concerned they wouldn't be able to charge as much as the bigger companies.
Right. And they were very clear that their rates are competitive, even higher in some cases than the big players.
Wait, really? How is that possible? Don't the big companies usually have more leverage?
You'd think so, but all e-technologies has a secret weapon: specialization.
Ah, I see.
They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They've found their niche, the Microsoft ecosystem, and they've become the go-to experts.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. They're not just providing warm bodies, they're offering deep expertise, and they get results. And clients are willing to pay for that.
It's like hiring a specialist versus a general doctor. Sometimes you need that specific expertise.
Perfect analogy. And they're using that specialization to attract top talent and command those higher rates.
Smart. But this focus on Microsoft, it's raised some eyebrows. One analyst wondered if they're worried about being too reliant on a single platform.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What if something else comes along and becomes the new hotness? It's a valid concern.
Right.
And they addressed it head on. They said they still believe Microsoft is the best for most of their clients' needs. It's not blind loyalty, it's a strategic choice.
So they're not ruling out working with other platforms if needed.
Exactly. They said they're committed to giving their clients the best solutions, whatever the platform, but they're not going to diversify just for the sake of it. They're sticking to their strengths.
Their sweet spot.
Exactly. But let's talk about the human side of all this. One shareholder asked how they keep their company culture as they grow, especially internationally. It's a tough question, right? How do you keep that essence when you're adding new people, operating in different places? Really tough. And they had some insightful answers. They said some of their core values are more like fundamental principles.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Like their commitment to ethical business. It's not negotiable. It's not something that changes depending on where they are. It's in their DNA.
It's not just a code of conduct, it's how they operate.
Exactly. And they've created a culture where employees are encouraged to uphold those values, even if it means pushing back against pressure.
It's accountability. Transparency. Everyone's responsible for keeping things on the up and up.
Exactly. But it's not just about rules. It's about creating an environment where people feel valued, respected, trusted.
So empowering them to make decisions, to take ownership, to contribute their ideas.
Absolutely. And they do this in several ways. The ESOP, the flat organizational structure that encourages communication and collaboration, it all adds up.
It creates this shared purpose, this sense of ownership, like everyone's part of something bigger. But as they grow, there are going to be challenges, right? Both internal and external. What are some of the things that could trip them up?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is going to be those growing pains. keeping that close-knit culture as they get bigger, as they expand geographically.
Yeah, how do they plan to deal with that?
They admitted it's not going to be easy, but they're investing in the right infrastructure and processes. They're already trying out new communication tools, leadership programs, making sure everyone's connected no matter where they are.
It's about scaling their culture along with the business, keeping those values at the center.
Exactly.
But what about external challenges? We talked about how fast tech changes. How are they preparing for the inevitable disruptions?
They're not sitting still, that's for sure. They're investing in R&D, looking at new tech like AI and blockchain, trying out new ways to deliver their services. They're constantly looking ahead, trying to anticipate what's coming next.
So they're not just reacting to change, they're trying to be proactive.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to challenge themselves, to experiment. Remember that moonshot question in the earnings call?
Oh yeah, about those big ambitious projects.
Yeah, like what Amazon did with AWS. They didn't give any specifics, but they did say they're looking at some potentially game-changing ideas.
Interesting. So they're not just thinking about the next few years, they're thinking long term.
That's what sets them apart. They're not just riding the current wave, they're trying to create the next one. They're not just building a company, they're building a legacy.
It's inspiring to see a company so focused on innovation, growth, and making a difference. But as we wrap up this part, what has stood out to you the most about all e-technologies?
For me, it's that balance they've struck between ambition and integrity. They have these big goals, but they're pursuing them in a way that's ethical, sustainable, and puts people first.
I couldn't agree more. They're a great example of how to do business the right way. But there's still more to uncover. We've looked at their financials, their tech strategy, their ethics, their culture, but we've only scratched the surface. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to focus on what we can actually learn from Ali Technologies Ltd. They're clearly doing something right in this crazy, constantly changing tech world.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the takeaways here, not just for businesses, but for anyone who's trying to stay ahead?
I think one of the biggest lessons is how they're all about adapting. They're not scared to change things up, even if it means changing their whole business model. They have this sense for when the tech landscape is shifting, and they're willing to move with it, even when things are going great.
That reminds me of something Dr. Ajay Mian, their managing director, said in the earnings call. He talked about the Y2K problem and how companies that just clung to the old ways, they ended up, they disappeared.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that just because you were successful in the past doesn't mean you're going to survive the future.
Oh, for sure. There's no room for complacency.
Nope.
And it's not even just about reacting to change. It's about getting ahead of it, even shaping it. Like what they're doing with AI and automation. They're not waiting around to see what happens. They're building the future.
Yeah. And they're doing it with a lot of integrity. Remember that story about them walking away from that big government contract?
Oh, yeah.
Because ethically, it wasn't right for them. That takes a lot of courage, especially for a company that's trying to grow as fast as they are.
Yeah, it does. But they get it, Real success is built on trust and respect. They're showing that you can be profitable and ethical, and that's a big deal these days.
This whole deep dive has really made me think about company culture in a new way. It's not just some HR buzzword. It's really important for how well a company does and whether it's going to last.
Couldn't agree more. Their culture is what sets them apart, especially when they're trying to attract and keep those talented people.
Especially in this market.
Yeah, imagine you're a top tech person, you can work anywhere. Wouldn't you rather be somewhere you feel valued, respected, and where you actually have a piece of the pie?
I know I would. That ESOP, it's brilliant. It's not just about the money. It's about giving everyone a stake in the game. It brings everyone together.
It creates a real team.
Yeah. And that's what lets them compete with the big guys. They might be smaller, but their culture, their values, their commitment to doing great work, that's what gives them an edge.
It's like a snowball effect. Their culture brings in talented people, which leads to innovation and growth, which makes the culture even stronger. It's a cycle.
But it's not all smooth sailing. Keeping that culture strong as they grow, especially going global, that's going to be tough.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have to be really deliberate about how they communicate their values, empower their leaders, and create systems that support how they do things.
Definitely.
And they can't get complacent about their technology. The tech world is always changing. New things are always popping up. And they have to stay flexible and adaptable if they want to stay on top.
Absolutely. But from what we've seen, they seem to have a good grasp on that. They're investing, they're exploring, they're not afraid to try new things.
So big picture, what's the main takeaway? What would you leave our listeners with?
All e-technologies Ltd. They're a great example of how to balance ambition with integrity. They've shown you can be really successful while still sticking to your values, building a strong culture, and adapting to change.
Hmm.
They're not just building a company, they're building a legacy, and that's worth noticing.
Well said. This deep dive has been really eye-opening, and I think we've all learned some valuable lessons about what it takes to succeed in this ever-changing world.
I agree. All e-technologies Ltd., they're a company to watch, not just for their bottom line, but for how they approach business and their commitment to making a positive impact.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into All E Technologies Ltd. We'll be back soon with another fascinating look at a company that's pushing the boundaries and shaping the future.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.